Hi, Noni from ThermoFit here, and in this video I want to share with you a bit about the latest safety release from Vorwerk International, which is the company that create the Thermomix, and give you a little bit of a rundown on it, a bit more information, and my personal opinion and recommendations on it. Now, just quickly, if you've never come across me or ThermoFit before, I've been a consultant since 2013, which means I've had the TM31, the TM5, and the TM6, and I've been running my business ThermoFit since 2017, which is teaching people how to use their Thermomix for healthy living and weight loss. So a couple of weeks back, Thermomix in Australia, coming from Vorwerk International in Germany, released a safety advice on a new way to use your TM6 Thermomix because they identified a potential issue. The key word being there is potential, because to our knowledge, nothing has ever happened. They've just identified the possibility. So I want to make it super clear that in no way should you be worried about using your Thermomix, and I would hate to see this scare anybody from using their TM6 Thermomix because they think it's not safe. First of all, just know that this applies to every single TM6 owner in the whole world, and also any TM5 owner that is using one of these TM6 style measuring cups, or also known as the MC. With this measuring cup, we can see that it has some gaps here which allows for steam to escape. It's got a few of these around it, and this measuring cup fits into the lid a little bit. It doesn't sit on top like the TM31 and the TM5 models do. It actually has some little flexi silicone sides here that make it stay into the lid a bit more firmly. Just like this. Now, what Vorwerk International have identified as being the potential issue is that the holes where the steam escape, it's going to be hard for me to show you this, but where the holes where the steam escape, there's potential for food to float to the surface and to become stuck and block those holes, which could create a style of pressure system, which may result in a build-up of pressure and possibly liquid coming out when the Thermomix arms are opened. Now, just remember, this is a potential safety identified issue where, to our knowledge, this has never happened. So I'd like to put it into perspective and share with you where my brain went with this when I first heard about this. So there are almost 5 million TM6 owners across the whole globe, and let's say everybody has used their TM6 just one time. That is less than 1 in 5 million chance of this potential issue happening. So I just really want to make that clear, just in case there's anybody out there who's actually scared to use their TM6. I honestly believe that Vorwerk International and Thermomix are being incredibly overcautious here, which is great. That's fine. We all want to be on the safe side, but I really do want people to put that into perspective. And just before I go any further, this video is made based on solely my advice and my experience in the industry and with the product. This is not advice from Thermomix or Vorwerk International. Now, the new advice and recommendation is that when we are cooking at above 95 degrees Celsius or above, we should put the TM basket, also known as the simmering basket, on top of the lid while we're cooking to avoid that potential blockage in the measuring cup. Understandably, this has caused a little bit of a fuss because this is bulky, it's inconvenient to wash up, to have in the dish strainer, to be taking that space up in the dishwasher, and just to generally clean. I can understand where people are coming from with this being the solution. Now, first of all, Having the TM simmering basket on top here is not new. This is not a new theory. We've done this before. Way back when I started in 2013, we used to do this when we cooked the risotto. I believe some recipes still call for it today. This is because having the basket on top of the lid like this avoids any splatter, especially with a recipe like risotto where the volume does rise as the rice cooks. It avoids any splatter, but it also allows enough steam to escape to reduce the dish, because you can imagine with a risotto, if we trap all the liquid in there, it's gonna be too runny. A very valid question that kept coming up is that people wanted to know, can they use the splash guard, which is this, to replace the simmering basket on top of the lid? Because as we can see, this is a lot more convenient and a lot easier to clean and to wash up than the basket would be. The answer from Vorwerk on this has been no, that they do not recommend using the splash guard instead of the basket in this case, because the splash guard was designed for only using it on top of the lid when we're using the high heat function. So that high heat function that we have at 160 degrees. I've tried to understand a little bit more about why the answer is no to this, because as we can see, there's going to always be a gap and multiple holes in the splash guard, which our common sense tells us all, why would we not be able to use the splash guard instead? So it is hard to understand why they're saying no, because they're not quite giving more details on why, but hopefully that will change and we'll have a little bit more information as time goes on. Disclaimer to cover my ass, what I'm gonna say next, I am not recommending, I am just sharing what I myself am going to do, because I feel like a little bit of common sense and personal responsibility and accountability can come into play here. And I know that if I'm sauteing an onion and garlic, which takes up this amount in the bowl, and I'm sauteing that over 95 degrees, but for 3 minutes, and I know that there is zero possibility of anything floating to the surface and blocking the holes and creating a pressure system, I'm not going to change the way I'm not going to put the basket on top for that. But in the extremely unlikely event that something may happen when I choose to do that, I would take full responsibility and accountability for anything that happened in that case. I would rather not wash up the basket just from sauteing onions and garlic for 3 minutes, but it's completely up to you what you choose to do. And it's like anything. If we don't follow the instructions of like the manufacturer's guide and safety advice of a product, that's our own personal responsibility and accountability if it breaks or if something goes wrong. For me, in my head, when I've thought about, you know, that this has never happened before, it's been identified as a potential issue, and when I think about things like sauteing onions and garlic for a couple of minutes and I know that there's no chance of it floating to the top and blocking it and creating a pressure system in that amount of time, in those cases, I'm going to choose to run that risk, which I think is zero risk. However, if I'm doing something that requires a long amount of time of cooking and I'm using a very large volume in the bowl, I will use the basket. And in some cases, I'm going to see it as an opportunity to use the Varoma more. I know a lot of people don't get enough use out of this, but the Varoma is great for when you're cooking on Varoma temperature or anything over 100 where we're going to be generating a lot of steam, to put something on top to cook for later. That's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So we're already having something on the top that's not the basket, but we may as well be using that steam to steam something. So this could be extra vegetables for the next day. This could be chicken, an extra piece of fish or salmon, basically whatever you can think of. Eggs is another one, so you put whole eggs into the Varoma, and if it's cooking for at least 14 minutes, you'll have hard-boiled eggs. So think of it as an opportunity. If you're gonna wash something up, we may as well get the use out of it and put something on top that's gonna cook at the same time. The main thing I really want to stress and get through to people here is that you don't need to be scared to use your TM6. There's no defect in how it performs, just like it did the day you used it before this safety advice came out. I believe that Vorwerk International are being incredibly overcautious, and it's up to you how strictly or not strictly that you follow that advice. Personally, I hope in the future that Vorwerk International create a modification to the measuring cup where they take off the bits that fix the measuring cup into the lid, so that in the event of anything becoming lodged in there, it will not get stuck in there. Or they could create more steam escape holes in the measuring cup, or, you know, I'm not a Vorwerk Thermomix engineer, but using common sense, I feel like that would be a more simple solution. I could be wrong, but this to me seems like a more ideal solution than asking everybody to put the basket on top of the lid when they're cooking and changing the way they do things. Then they could put out a call to send this to every TM6 owner, their new measuring cup. This is my line of thinking, and fix it that way. Fingers crossed they come up with another solution, but to date, this has been a couple of weeks now and we haven't heard much more of an update. One more thing I'd like to add on to that I didn't mention earlier is that what about when we're using the basket? What about when we're making rice, or we're using a dish that calls for the basket to be inside the mixing bowl already? In those cases, the measuring cup is still okay to go on top. Not sure why, but they say that the recipes where the basket is being used poses no threat to that potential issue. That is the advice that we have to work with right now. Every single TM6 owner should have been emailed about this, and also if you require a bit more information, they've set up a website that's thermomixfacts.com.au. That's Thermomix and facts, facts.com.au with more information. Or if you'd really like to speak with somebody, you can call within Australia 1-800-004-838, and that will take you to the customer service team and the service centre. I really hope that you found my take on this helpful, and if you were scared at all about using your TM6 or worried, please don't be. I hope that I've put you at ease. Love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments below. Please ask me any questions. I will update you if the latest news comes, because being a consultant, I maybe get a little bit more inside knowledge than the common customer. Please feel free to ask me anything, and make sure you subscribe for if there is any advice that comes out. I'll make another video on it to update you all. Happy cooking.